and welcome to the screencast on the immune system, which is one of the different systems involved in our body's defenses. And so we may think, well, what does the immune system do? Why do we need one? And the simple answer is to keep us healthy. But that is a simple answer. If you think about it, we've got a lot of things that want to get inside of us and eat all those nutrients and good things that we have inside our bodies. So we have to have a pretty good immune system to keep out those organisms, such as, let's see, bacteria like tuberculosis. We have viruses that want to get in, like the flu virus or the rhinovirus, which causes colds. Um, Fungi, athlete's foot, or even little microbes called protists that cause malaria. And if that's not enough, we also have attack from the inside, like cancerous cells that are attacking our body and our healthy cells. And there are some diseases where our own immune system turns on us and attacks parts of our own body. So there's a lot of things that we need to defend against. And so we're going to have a lot of different strategies to defend against those variety of invaders. So let's take a look in a little more detail at those levels of defense. So to begin, we have two broad categories here, non-specific immunity, and obviously the opposite would be specific. And non-specific immunity is just prevention in a very broad sense. It's not customized to particular invaders. And so I like to group the first and the second level of defense as non-specific. And as I mentioned, specific immunity is specific protection. It's a customized attack against a particular invader. And this will be saved for the third line of defense. So in this screencast, we're going to take a look at the non-specific immunity and specifically the second level of defense. So just to recap here, the first line of defense, I tend to think of them like protecting a castle. So these are broad external defenses, like a wall in the fact of our skin, and moats like our mucous membranes in our tears and our eyes, the stomach acid in our stomachs. Let's see, the lysosomes in our saliva. So everything that keeps the bad guys out. In the second line of defense, still non-specific, I tend to think of this as the patrolling soldiers inside our body. It's still a broad attack, but it's internal now. The first line has been breached. And these are going to involve white blood cells primarily. They're going to roam the blood. They're going to be roaming around in the interstitial fluid. They'll be roaming around in our lymph looking for victims to destroy. So let's look at all those different strategies of a broad internal patrol. As I said, they involve white blood cells. And the two that I'm going to bring to your attention that are most important are macrophages and mast cells. So both of these white blood cells are always kind of circulating around in our bodies. And the macrophages, you can kind of see those guys over here. They're the ones that are going to be phagocytic in nature. What do I mean by that? I mean that they're going to sniff around for bad guys and literally engulf them. That's it. And their macro means big and phage means eater. So these are big eaters. They engulf big things and destroy them. The chemical releasing cells, the mast cells, and you can actually see the little granules in here, they release histamine. And histamine is a chemical that attracts macrophages to an area where they should be engulfing invaders. So these two white blood cells are always kind of moving around your body, hoping to find the bad guys. But there's really no rhyme or reason. They're just looking around, trying to find them. They have no clues to lead them in the right direction. And so this is an up-close look at a macrophage. On the bottom, that one's my favorite. It's engulfing a yeast cell. But if we look up here, what happens after they engulf? So we have our little microbes right here. They're engulfing them by endocytosis. And so then they put them in a little vacuole here. They're going to end up fusing with the lysosome. And then the lysosome with its digestive enzymes is going to kill that microbe. They'll release it by exocytosis. Now that's really not the whole picture. That's the whole picture though for second line of defense. What I'm going to kind of give you a little preview of is this. Now these macrophages, they do one more thing that actually helps out our specific defenses. So what they do is after they eat that bad guy, they kind of present little bits of information on the outside of their plasma membrane in a special type of protein that's called an MHC protein. And because they did that, that's going to lead a really big role in the specific line of defense in the next video that you'll be watching. So just keep that in mind, that they don't just spit out that bad guy and forget it. They actually present those little bits of information on the outside of their cell membrane, kind of like a wanted poster for your body to look for any other microbes that may be out there that look like that. So back to our second line of defense, and the complement system is next. Now, if you think about what the word compliment means, now, it's not spelled like a compliment as in giving someone encouraging words. That would be an I right here. It's spelled with an E, and so that means it's complementary. It helps out the macrophages. So these are just proteins that are, again, like the macrophages, roaming around. But they work kind of in tandem. So what they do is they roam around, they find a cell that shouldn't be there, and they latch on. They don't do anything to those cells, they can't, but they do latch on, and those are kind of little flags that tell the macrophages that those cells need to be destroyed. Okay, so the macrophages and the proteins work in complement for each other, or of each other. We have two more strategies in the second level of defense, and that's inflammatory response and fever. And they work kind of hand in hand. They complement each other. So in the inflammatory response, you can see we've breached the first line of defense with this splinter, and all the little microbes are in here. And the first thing that's damaged are the mast cells, which contain histamine. And that histamine is released, and all of these things then happen because of that. Excuse me. The capillaries dilate, so there's more blood flow, which means more white blood cells get to go to the site of infection. And those white blood cells then eat up the microbes. And so that's where we get all the side effects of inflammation. But it's still a very local response, and it's a general response. We're not going after specific microbes. Now, if the macrophages get outnumbered, when a local response is not enough, we have to have the whole body try and respond to this infection. So it's called the systemic response. And that's what a fever is. It's just a whole body response when the local infection has been kind of outnumbered. And so those macrophages, when they're fighting, they're trying to engulf all these microbes, they realize they're outnumbered and they need to call backup. So they release a chemical, it travels through your blood, and it gets up to your hypothalamus in your brain, and it tells your hypothalamus to turn up that temperature just a little bit. And so what does that do? Well, it's going to help slow down the bacteria from dividing, so hopefully your macrophages then can speed up the process and catch up. It's going to help that tissue that was damaged to repair. And what's super cool is that it tells your liver that higher temperature to store iron. And by storing iron, that's how we actually help to slow the bacteria from growing right here, because a lot of bacteria depend on iron for their metabolism. So if we can cut off that source, they can't grow and divide faster. And so that's a look at the fever response when a local response isn't enough. Now, in the short term, a fever isn't a bad thing, but in the long term, obviously, those effects, there can be side effects that we don't want. So that's a look at our second level of defense. It's a broad, general, internal defense. Thanks for listening.